Happy New Year's, everybody. Here's a video of, as I guess, a sketchbook tour of what I did in 2018. It's pretty low, so it's like only got like a couple books to go through. My goal for 2019 is probably like just to draw a little bit more and like try to put more practice in with when it comes to following my studies from my books. And I also will be doing a book review and showing off like stuff that I have in my library that like kind of equates to like going to art school. Um, I started off with this sketchbook somewhere in mid 2018, and I've been mostly doing like digital artwork. But what I really was really focused on was fundamentals. So I did a lot of research on how to get better as an artist, and one was repetition. Many times you draw something, you get better at it. So I was kind of like all over the place. So I started drawing heads, drawing different faces, and I was only using a pen. And drawing only in pen builds confidence in your line work. So this first page was very disheartening. I don't really like this page as much, but it's whatever. It's a sketchbook. It's not for anyone else but me. So you can see right here, drawing up the eyes, different styles of eyes, things I thought I liked. Just trying to get back into the groove of just drawing on a regular basis. And here is when I was doing more of the technical studies, where I'm trying to practice my circles and ellipses. And now looking back at them, I'm like, man, I could not draw a circle for shit. But I also been practicing trying to come up with textures, perspective like a little bit, and it's like really lazy and half-assed. But this is a start. Like if you want to start getting better at drawing, you start off with something. Don't set your bar way too high. Set it low. Take it slow. And I started practicing like more with straight lines here, where I was following Peter Hahn's example of getting better at straight lines by doing one straight line and going over that straight line like 8 to 10 times and so forth. So you start off like really short, medium length, and then as long as you can. I was just only using this small section here. There's pages in here where I'm completely covered in lines and circles, like lines, circles, and ellipses. More textures, more line control stuff, like practicing waves over and over and like 10 times over the same wave. Connecting lines to dots here, or try to connect them to like curves. Just make sure I have that accuracy down. This page here is when I was just trying to practice perspective, and one of the biggest major points that I feel like I was lacking in my artwork was my perspective. I had no idea or concept of perspective. I knew somewhat of perspective. I knew about drawing boxes on like certain planes, but I didn't understand how they worked entirely. So with this exercise, it helped a lot because I was also practicing straight lines, doing it in pen, trying to build confidence in my own work, and making sure that like I can draw boxes like in almost any perspective. That's gonna be like my next goal for this year, just being able to draw boxes without using a guideline, a horizon line. This one right here. And this is all 1 point. Two point. And back to lines, circles, ellipses, textures. More perspective. So in this sketchbook, I'm just basically learning the fundamentals all over again. I feel like I have to just go back to basics and try to get better at the basics. And I think at this point on, for I guess like a month or so, I went through this sketchbook real fast just by doing the fundamentals. Lines, textures, and they go on. Like perspective, really bad perspective. It kind of hurts me just to like look at all this right now. I'm like, I don't know what I was doing. But sorry if I feel a little bit nasally. New Year's Eve, I had like a crazy night out. Didn't find myself in bed until 7 a.m. And it was just like one of those rare times I actually get to party. So I went really hard, and I ended up somewhere in downtown LA at like a rave party when I came to my senses. But it was fun. I hope everyone's enjoying their new year. But yeah, man, I felt like at some point I was getting really good at coming up with textures. I need to get back to doing this again. I haven't done this in a while. I've been mostly focusing on as like keep contributing the pages. I was focusing more on making straight lines. These lines are nowhere near straight. They just kind of like went all over the place. Yeah, I just have like a whole sketchbook for lines, circles, ellipses. Just trying to get my penmanship down. Because if you know in industrial design, or when it comes to like drawing anything, everything's made out of the fundamental shapes. Like these eyes are also made with ellipses. The pupils are like circles. All these things can be like broken down into fundamental shapes, and not only like the human figure, but it can go for objects too. That's one thing I haven't done. Right here is the starting point of me just going. I was just really obsessed with lines, circles, and ellipses, making sure I have straight lines, making sure I was able to like, instead of drawing with my wrists, I'm drawing with my arm. Because as you keep drawing with your wrist, you kind of like you might be able to get like, I don't know, some form of carpal tunnel or like some type of wrist, problems. So I'm trying to avoid that. This page here probably won't be able to see it as well unless this camera like focuses. And I think that's as good as it's gonna get. But I was trying to practice composition, coming up with backgrounds and like practicing more perspective and buildings out of like shapes, squares and what have you. But that was only short-lived for me to like go back to just lines, circles, and ellipses. And this is something that I realized as of recently, as of late 2018. But this is a practice that I didn't have to focus all my time on. They're uniformed here, and then at some point I just kind of go crazy with it. I start filling up pages and pages and pages. Not even like some sketches, not even a lot of like drawings here. I just want to be able to draw straight lines and have my circles look like circles and my ellipses look like ellipses. And that's basically it. That's all for this. And it's like a sad use of the toned tan sketchbook too. And I could have done so much more with this sketchbook, but I was so wrapped up in fundamentals. I just kind of like, whatever, paper is paper. I don't have any copy paper, so I'm using whatever I have. Second book. And at this point, I'm just experimenting with different textures of paper to feel which ones I like the most. I like the tone tan, paper, but also mixed media is pretty nice too. Trying to draw something like from Black Panther, T'Challa. I was like trying to come up with like maybe some cool designs of it. This is a sketch where I'm trying to simplify as much as possible when it comes to my artwork. Not so detailed, but it was for a story that I've been working on, and eventually I'll start showing more progress on that. But this is just a few ideas. And I need to get into the habit of not having so much empty space here. Just fully draw on the entire page. One of the characters I was coming up with, was like running out of focus. It's one of the characters that I was working on. He's supposed to be a villain. I'll talk about the story some other time. And then again, I go back into lines, circles, and ellipses. And this was just half of the year. But then I started doing straight lines, trying to do more precise lines, having lines that intersect with each other perfectly. And this is actually pretty hard to do. I thought it was gonna be easy. I'm like, well, I can draw lines. I can make an X, make a perfect X. But like, at some point, I realized that yeah, I can make an X, but it's not really perfect. So this is another great exercise. Also connecting lines to dots, like straight lines, making sure they hit. I got into perspective a little bit more. Well, I guess not like a little bit more, but it's more like got into perspective just a little bit. Just adding that into it while I keep practicing my straight lines, circles, and ellipses. My lines got a little bit cleaner, but a lot of them weren't as straight as I wanted them to be, and that was like frustrating. And I think that's what like was what was leading me to the madness of like doing all this. Eventually, when I got fed up, I was still coming up with a schedule. I used to just fill days, just spend like an hour or so just making straight lines and circles. And I started branching out just a little bit more by every passing day. And it would become like a pattern where it was like a couple pages of, I'm sorry, a couple pages of straight lines and circles and ellipses. And then a little study. Studying about planes and how to multiply planes for constructing objects in. And then this is around October. That's why I tried doing the Inktober thing and I fell off immediately. I had just bogged down with work and constant sleepless nights, and I just was like really burnt. So I can only do like only so many of these. I think I did only like 3 Inktober sketches. Here's one of them. I was really into Dr. Doom for a second, and I was like, Dr. Doom is a pimp. So let me do a Dr. Doom sketch. And went back to lines, circles, and ellipses. Firebrand. I was really into like Marvel vs. Capcom for a second. And then I think that was it for the Inktober stuff. I think there's like one more. Straight lines, circles, ellipses. And this was just the theme. Some chick I just like drew. Just trying to like play around. Just trying to like draw freely and not like think too much about stuff. So then that was it for Inktober. It just became this mess. And this is like all boring stuff. Like a lot of the stuff I was doing for fun, like just to make a nice drawing or painting, it was all on Photoshop. I didn't have any initial sketches. But I think somewhere down the line here, I started sketching a little bit more. This page is nothing but straight lines. I was really like focused on this. And then it's crazy because I thought I was just losing my mind. But at some point, now looking back, I was getting better at making these straight lines looking a little bit straighter and straighter, and these circles and ellipses were looking cleaner and cleaner. And this is when I started like, okay, I want to draw stuff for fun now. Like I'm tired of doing fundamental stuff, but I will go back to doing fundamentals. But I want to get better at drawing in a certain style. So I look up a bunch of my favorite artists and I see how they're doing it, and I try to emulate the same thing. And it's like copying for a sense, but like it's just more like getting the feel of what I like and what I don't like about certain drawings, and just getting the habit of just drawing more too. Just drawing more in general just helps a lot more. Then I discovered an artist called Krenz Couchard. This guy, he like straight out of Japan. His anatomy is like really great. I like his anatomy studies. So I started like trying to adopt some of these principles on like how he constructs his arms and hands, his body poses, and eventually, like, the whole point and the whole goals of this is that if I take the information from his examples and draw that, I wouldn't need to start every sketch with an S curve or start every sketch with, like, you know, really, really rough stuff. I'd be able to build human anatomy just with these simple shapes here. There's more styles that I liked, and I just wanted to replicate it. And I want to get really good at poses. Another big problem of mine was arms and hands. I don't think arms was that much, but it was definitely hands. I need to work on hands a lot more, but you know, it's a crawl. It's a marathon. It's not a race. So just trying to get better at my own speed and own time. Like as much time as I have, I'm just trying to get better with what I got. Oh man, I was just like watching Comic Pop, and we were talking about Super Sons, and I fell in love with George Hernandez's work, and it was just it's such a cool style of mixing like somewhat anime but like realistic portions to them, you know. So started drawing stuff from my favorite artists, trying to pick up inspiration from that, have fun doing it. I think that's what matters the most, just having fun. Like, even if you're copying someone else's stuff, I'm not labeling this as my own, but I'm just saying, like, you're just doing it to have fun, to just put yourself at ease, to drawing a lot more, so you're not like constantly trying to force your mind to draw something, you know, just to be like as creative as possible. So you're not like you're not burning yourself out. More anatomy sketches. A lot of them are just like some fun reimaginings of drawings. I'm just trying to draw it in my own way, but keeping to the source. Alright, with this one, this is, I guess it was like around November. It was between November. The Spider-Man movie was coming out, or somewhere in between November and December. It was like at the end of November, early December, Spider-Man movie was coming out, and I was hyped. So I redrew a cover from an Amazing Spider-Man comic where it's like Superior Spider-Man, when he's like falling through a bunch of shattered glass and it's all memories and stuff, and I thought that was really cool. So I was like, you know, that could be like Spider-Verse itself, like draw Miles Morales here and then have different pictures of moments inside the glass, which is all like taken from comic books. These are just copies of T.B. Choi when it came to drawing facial expressions or faces. She's also amazing too. I recommend everyone to like look for T.B. Choi. Great stuff. And the way how she breaks down anatomy is so good. Like, I gotta find that sketchbook when I was like following her tutorials on drawing legs and arms. Here's some more poses and the sketchbook for this one. This is nothing. Like right after that sketchbook, I picked this one up. This was just nothing but pure like fundamentals and basics. Nothing like pretty to look at. It's just here, just straight lines, circles, ellipses as a warm up. Now I'm doing perspective, 2-point perspective. Instead of branching out from only 1 and 2, I started also doing like 3-point at some point. More practice with accurate lines. Can't talk today. Don't know why. But I figured if I kept doing these principles and keep doing these exercises, I get better. Like, how did I know I made a perfect ellipse? And by throwing a straight line through the, I think it was median. Well, it was just throwing a line in the middle, and they're like this same here. You have a perfect ellipse. I wish I could elaborate more on this, but I'm like kind of like fried from all the celebrating and active events. Yeah, it's just more ellipse practices, different ways to like draw the ellipse in a certain amount of space. Then I go back again to this, and it's just it's like a broken record, you know. I'm starting to do something different, and then I just go back to doing the same stuff. This one I'm actually trying a little bit more to like work on perspective, drawing more boxes and stuff instead of like drawing here is like 2 or 3 in perspective. I kind of get the hang of it because I know I don't have like a full hang of it. So I started drawing as many as possible in different sizes and different volumes. Here's a 2-point. I don't think I ever touched on 3-point because I don't know. I feel like 3-point was just 2-point perspective in a certain way. More line practices here. Drawing straight, accurate lines. Try to get them in the middle to meet all in the middle, not a little bit off on the side. And this just became like my daily routine before I started drawing anything for fun or painting anything on Photoshop. It was more like practice your fundamentals, warm up with doing straight lines, circles, and ellipses. And when you're done with that, and you're done with perspective too, you move on to doing something for fun. You know, that's like a treat to myself. You know, experiment with using Photoshop, try to understand something else, you know. So a lot of this stuff can be really tedious, but, you know, to me it was worth it because I have more of a better understanding of how to make certain stuff. So almost in 1-point, 2-point. And I think I didn't do 3-point because I was just already like burnt from doing the straight lines, circles, and ellipses to doing more ellipse practices and, you know, drawing them all in a row here and then have them follow an axis and then put them in a box and try to keep them in perspective. But yeah, I think I just got really burnt out, and I never continued to doing 3-point. But I do have a full understanding of 3-point, where you have a horizon line and you have 3 points where you will connect the lines to make your buildings and objects and shapes. And I guess like at some point all I want to do is draw like straight boxes. Just want some nice boxes. Like right here, it's all freehand. Then at some point I started using rulers just to have them really match up, because I was tired of my freehand boxes looking really like kind of off-centered or whatever, you know, a lot of the lines not making sense sometimes. You know, it's 1-point, 2-point. So yeah, that's basically this entire sketchbook. And I think I was just doing this just to like get a feel of this type of paper. And this paper it's whatever. It's very cheap. I didn't really care for it. Yeah, it's all lines. Some perspective. And at some point in this, I just only did straight lines, circles, and ellipses. And after that, that was it. Start recording. this is the last sketchbook. I didn't finish this one, but this was towards the end of the year, going into the new year. And really love the feel of this paper. Really like how the pen feels when I draw on this type of surface. So I think, like, most importantly, find something that you're like really comfortable with, and everything else will just seem a lot better for you when it comes to like drawing or whatever. It's all about comfortability. You don't want to draw when you're angry. You don't want to draw when you're like tired. You don't want to draw when you're, feeling some type of way. You want to draw when you're like clear-minded, not as stressed, because you don't want this to be stressful. It's more like this is what you like to do for fun. This is what you like to do as a, as a form of meditation of sorts. So I started calming myself down and like stopped taking things as seriously, and I just like started drawing random stuff. It's more crayons, cruchart drawings here. Just trying to understand how you build up his shapes. A lot of the stuff just kind of seems like the perspective is off. I'm just trying to get down like the fundamental shapes to like his fingers, his arms, his body. Little rotating box method or idea of drawing faces or heads or any part of the body, just being able to rotate it in a 3D space, because we're all living in 3D space and we're trying to convey that to paper instead of looking as 2D, just trying to like give them more dimension to them. I think that was the end of that. It was a little idea I had. Terrible sketch, but it's whatever. I love it, I guess. Not really. Right here is like breaking the chest down into a square and breaking it up into fourths. And in the middle of the fourth, let me just bring that down. In the middle, you have your guidelines to building your chest and what it will look like, where the muscles will go and stuff like that. And then when it comes to the limbs, you think of the limbs as cylinders. And then as you throw shape to your cylinders, that's how they start looking like, like the sexy leg right here, Doing more poses. All very rough. And I might actually like the rough look. Also, one of my favorite artists is Archer. So I was like, let me see if I can like recreate his Lancer. It was okay. It's not as good as him, but baby steps. Baby steps. This is just an idea for a story that I talked about before in my other sketchbooks. It's just I'm still working shop on it, just trying to understand like which direction it should go. Elaborate sometime in the future. More poses here. And I wanted this sketchbook to be more about actually drawing the human figure and drawing objects and stuff like that, instead of just doing straight lines and circles and ellipses. I feel like with that, I can just go on like copy paper or something. But when I first started, I was so determined to like get really good, so I just picked up any number of sketchbooks I had and started drawing them in them. Even my old stuff, like just randomly in them. Learn how to properly draw the human leg and the calves. This was all from a TV Choi live stream. Really good. It broke it down so much, where you have when you're drawing a human leg, and say if you're drawing from the pelvis here, there's a little indent here, and she breaks it down like this, where curve, 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 and it's all curves, and to show you where everything like lined up was just the way how she did it, she was like just making sound effects. But like following her, like it made sense, you know. And I was just practicing from her ever since then. You know, understood the way how you draw an arm, um, how you like draw certain aspects of the back, and facial construction, drawing the human figure when it comes to the torso. It's more legs. I really want to get my legs down. I felt when I discovered her video on drawing legs and stuff, I felt like I hit gold. I was answered so many of my questions when it comes to drawing the lower half. And it's funny because like you can tell an artist's weakness during like when they post anything. They're like, oh, they hide the hands a lot. That probably is like an indication that they don't know how to draw hands very well, and they're very embarrassed about it. Oh, it's only like you only see the top half. You never see the legs or the feet or the shoes. You know, it's like, it's either that they're really lazy or like they just not that very confident, and that's like with a lot of new artists or beginner artists and stuff like that. I've been drawing for a long time, but I haven't like drawn seriously for a long time. So I started putting a lot of things into perspective and like try to apply them to my daily routine. So I'm trying to get really good at this. But I miss JoJo's Bizarre Adventure at some point. I haven't watched anime in a long time, and the last thing I saw was My Hero Academia. So I just decided like, let me see if Deku as Jotaro. Oh no, Josuke. And it was just an idea I had. I was listening to what's that song, Mo Mamba, and he had this line talking about you can call him the Green Goblin. And I laughed in my car, and I was like, I'm gonna draw that. I'm gonna draw a Green Goblin that has nothing but cash and stuff like that, and throw him out and do like a digital painting of it and see what that would look like. And this is like some client work here. And that is it for my sketchbook tour. I have older sketchbooks where I drew a lot more nice and prettier stuff, but it wasn't as serious. It was weird because I feel like a lot of my sketches, especially back in the day, they were good for what they were because I was drawing a lot more back then. Then at some point, I was working more than I was drawing, and it just seems like my drawing capabilities keep going up and down, up and down. But that is it for my sketchbook tour of 2018. Thank you for watching, and I will be posting more videos in this year. I'm trying to remove try from my vocabulary. I will be posting more, and I'm going to post more frequently. Just don't know when that will be. Alright guys, peace.